Welcome back to Northwest City Politics in the Know with Juanita. We're glad to have you with us again this evening. We're glad that you're interested in the issues that are happening in the city's and Northwest Community Television's viewing area. It is really important for good government that there's citizens like you out there that are following what's happening in your city, and from time to time, when it's something that's really important to you, you're taking the time to call your mayors and city council people and share your ideas with them. The city council and the staff need that input to help make the government in our cities good and reflective of the people that live there. So we're glad that you're joining us. If you haven't watched us before, from time to time, we will have people on from the 9 cities in Northwest Community Television's viewing area, mayors, city council, people that know the issues that are going on of each city. And from time to time, we'll have on some of the wider groups like the legislators or Northwest Hennepin Human Services, there I got it, groups that affect all of our cities. So we're glad that you're with us tonight, and tonight we're going to be looking at issues that are happening in the city of New Hope. And I'm very happy to welcome Kathi Hemken back on our show.
Thank you.
We've had you on our show before, so we're very happy to have you again to give some information about my city. And since you've been on our show before, you know that I'm going to ask you to take the time for you to introduce yourself out to our wider audience, because people that aren't from New Hope might not know you or your background and how you got involved.
How I got here. Well, my name is Kathi Hemken. I'm the mayor of New Hope. I've been in New Hope since 1976. My husband and I raised 6 children here. I have 11 grandchildren, 5 great-grandchildren. I got involved in city politics by joining the Planning Commission. Served on that for 11 years, 2 as the chair, and then just wanted to do something else. And when there came an opportunity to run for mayor, I did, and here I am.
Right. I asked you to think a little bit, because I'm asking several people this, think a little bit about the early history of New Hope, and then if you can share it with our audience, some things that happened in the beginnings of New Hope.
The beginnings of New Hope. Well, we were part of Crystal Township, and they had a water problem in that they wanted to put in wells and use water that from the cities, from the Minneapolis area. Well, some of the farms didn't want to do that. They wanted to have septic systems, and they wanted to use their own wells. And so Crystal allowed those farms to decide whether they wanted to stay with Crystal Township or go to New Hope. And so when you look at the border, it's very, very jigsawed. And it's because some farms, some 40-acre farms, decided to go with Crystal or to New Hope. And so at that time, Mayor Hansi, which was the first mayor of New Hope, he had the foresight to save a lot of land for parks. He had the foresight to look at a pool, look at our ice arena, and then the city just kind of grew from there. So that was about 53, 55 years ago.
Yeah, it's been growing during all that time, and you've seen quite a bit of the changes, because you've been here for quite a while.
I have, and I'm going to stay here, because I really like New Hope.
So do we. We'll start on some of the issues we're going to talk about, and I think one of the ones that there's a lot of interest on is we'll do an update on the Hy-Vee development that's, for people that aren't familiar, is in the old Kmart site right along Winnetka, just at 42nd.
When Sears announced that they were selling off the Kmarts, and the Kmart was going to go out of business in New Hope, that building became available for us to buy. We had looked at that site and thought, well, you know, when you buy an existing building, you have to relocate the people that are there. So as soon as the building came up for sale, that it was going to be empty, we of course jumped on it. For a couple reasons. We didn't want a big old building sitting right in the middle of our city. And the White Bear Lake actually has a Kmart that they did not buy, and it's still sitting there, and it's still empty. So we bought the Kmart, tore it down in the anticipation that we would have somebody come in. Well, about 6 months went by, and we invited 3 developers to come in, And all three developers were pretty much focused on high-density housing.
Right.
on
Now, that
spot
was back in January, right?
of this year, yeah.
Right. Yeah, because I'm hoping that our audience can learn kind of something about the process, because people hear things, don't see anything, and eventually something comes about.
Yep.
So I thought I'd tuck in the timeline there.
So we, in January, we had these developers come in, and just sort of at the last minute, Hy-Vee, which is a grocery chain out of Des Moines, Iowa,
Right.
Hy-Vee came in and said, we'd like to make a proposal too. So we had these two proposals for high-density housing and this grocery store. And so we started to do our homework and started to look at what they were going to do, and we were very impressed at their marketing scheme.
Okay.
So it's going to be a 90,000 square foot building with not a car wash, with a gas station and convenience store on 42nd. They wanted a car wash. We said, no, we don't need a car wash. But part of their model is to have a convenience store and a gas station.
Right.
And that was a real deal breaker for them. And for the city council, we decided that it was worth it to have those things so that we could get the store along with that. We did have a couple public meetings where the public could come in and see what they were proposing. And this has been a long, long process, because when you're doing some development this large, you want to make sure that everything's in order before you sign the final papers.
Yeah, because at one point you signed, and I don't remember the exact month, but you signed an agreement that both of Hy-Vee and the city would move forward in negotiations. Because isn't that kind of the first step in the process?
No, why you do that is because Hy-Vee at that point starts to draw their plans.
Okay.
And so they start, as a company, they start putting money into this development.
Right.
The plans, the stuff that goes under the soil, that kind of stuff. And they want to make sure that you're not negotiating with someone else at the same time. And then all of a sudden you say, well, we don't really want you, we'll go with the other guy.
Right.
And so you have to enter that kind of agreement.
Right.
So we entered into a 6-month agreement in which either of us could terminate the agreement at any time. But it's a show of good faith that we will just negotiate with you. So through that negotiation process, that's when we got rid of the car wash, got the gas station and the convenience store, the 90,000 square foot store, settled on a price. They actually paid the city $3.75 million for the land, which was a little bit of a write-down. But always when you've got a developer come in, you're going to have to help them a little bit.
Oh, yeah, probably across the board, it's almost,
And so we did do a tax increment financing district for that, not only that area, but for the whole city center area. And what that is Hy-Vee will continue to pay the taxes at the normal tax rate. And what the tax increment financing district is we take the money from what Kmart was paying in taxes, between the difference between that and what Hy-Vee is paying, and that's the piece that goes into tax increment. And the city takes that piece then, and we can use that to pay ourselves back for the demolition, the write-down of the land, some of the infrastructure things that we need to do with this, so that the taxpayers aren't the ones who have the burden of this. It actually comes out of this tax increment financing.
Yeah, and that process needed legislative approval, right?
It did. It did. All tax increment financing districts need legislative approval. There's very stringent guidelines that you have to follow, and if you follow them, then you can have that kind of a district and use those tax dollars coming in to repay yourself for them.
Then when you had kind of an open house for the public to come in, what did they see, or what happened at that?
Well, by
that part of the process.
By that time, Hy-Vee had drawn up about 30 sets of plans. And most of those plans were ideas. A lot of them were from their other stores. What they do at Hy-Vee is they typically have a deli, they have a diner, or a restaurant, a full-service restaurant. They have little kiosks inside the store with cheeses and breads and flours. And so they came with us, showing us what they were proposing. These weren't final plans. What they wanted was feedback and they got a lot of feedback.
Yeah, because there was a lot of people at that.
There was, and that
open
feedback,
house.
a lot of times people think by the time they see it, it's cut and dried,
Right.
but it's not at all. We as a city council listen to their feedback, and then we either pass it on to the developer or they're there. In this case, they were there, and they tweaked some of their plans. They made some things bigger, they made some things smaller. We were all real concerned about the neighbors to the north.
Right.
There's a couple high-rise buildings there. We wanted to make sure that it wasn't too noisy for them. That was something that Hy-Vee is taking into account, how to mitigate some of that noise so that it doesn't bother their neighbors.
Right.
Those neighbors, by the way, are just thrilled to have a grocery store like
right,
this within walking distance for them.
Yeah, because there's one building that has seniors in it, and then the other building has disabled people in it, right? So that a help for both of those buildings.
It's going to be a boom for the whole city of New Hope.
Now, can you tell us what's the current, we've gotten all the details building up to here, what's the current status of the process?
Well, we're probably going to sign this week. By the time we see this on TV, though, we will have signed a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
So everything's in order as of this afternoon. We were just waiting. They're not going to actually all get together around a table. They do it electronically. But everything was in order, and the signing should happen. They're going to break ground on the 13th of November. So that'll be a big groundbreaking ceremony. And then they're just going to start getting busy right away quick.
Now, that whole intersection really has that old Kmart property, then it has the property around Lifetime Fitness, and it has the property around Unique Thrift, and that's been designated the city center area, right?
It has. Those are separate pieces of property. Where Unique Thrift Center is, that whole center is owned by one entity, and then where Lifetime and Applebee's, that's owned by another entity. As of today, neither of those are for sale.
Right.
And when it's not for sale, obviously we can't build on it. You know, people say, well, why don't you just take it? Well, we can't just take it. We don't have eminent domain anymore. We are negotiating and at least talking to those centers. Where Applebee's is, they're not interested in doing anything. They tell me that they are having some talks with the other center, but they're still at the talk stage.
Right.
So we'll see.
Okay, so part of that overall, that's why I was asking you to wait just a minute, is all that construction that's happening on Xylon, right?
We intend to do a streetscape.
Okay.
Xylon is, you know, the fire department sits right there.
Right.
The fire department has got to be able to get out of there and go. The police department sits at the other end, and they too have to be able to get out and go. But that street right across from where the Kmart site was, where Hy-Vee will be, we really want to redo that street to make it a little more user-friendly. So we'll probably narrow it so there'll be 2 lanes of traffic to slow that traffic down.
Sure.
Put in some green stuff, some benches, some green space. As we speak, they're doing a presentation to our commissions.
Right.
And they had developed a plan thinking they were going to get more money from Hy-Vee than Hy-Vee had agreed to.
Okay.
So now they've worked out that detail, and they're scaling down the plan. Of course, when you do a plan, you want to put in everything you could possibly imagine.
Right.
And that price tag got a little steep. So now they're looking at, well, where can we cut back? Perhaps we don't need colored pavers.
Okay.
We could use cement. Or maybe we don't need a light pole every 3 feet. Maybe 8 feet would be fine.
Yeah.
So they're looking at ways in which to scale that back. We do want a place where people can gather.
Right.
And this Xylon is going to be one of those places. Our swimming pool's there. Our city hall is there. The police department, the fire department, and then we have this lovely Hy-Vee on the other side of the street. So we do want it to look nice.
Right. And then at the same time, aren't you increasing the sewer and the water and the things to help with the businesses?
Oh, you have to.
Right.
They have to have water.
Right.
And heavens, they have to have sewer. And they have to have stormwater. And so whenever you do something like that, it makes sense to put all that stuff into the street.
Right.
And that's what people saw when they saw all this digging up going on. We put that in the street, and then now it's covered up, and there's just like a wear coat, they call it. That will get finished in the spring. We didn't want to put a finished coat on that and then have these construction trucks coming and going.
Right,
And
right.
so it's in, but you do have to put that kind of stuff in. This is an old city.
Oh,
And
right,
you have to
right,
redo that
right.
stuff.
And to make it last for, what, another 50-plus years?
I hope so.
Yep. And the timeline for the Hy-Vee construction, when are they anticipating that they'll have it finished?
Well, if they break ground on the 13th of November,
Okay.
they're planning to work all winter.
Okay,
They should have the convenience store and the gas station done first.
okay,
That's way toward the
Right.
42nd Avenue. And then it'll look like the building's done,
uh-huh,
probably in early spring. They need 3 to 4 months to stock the building, train the employees, hire the employees.
oh, right.
And so they're looking at the latter part of September, early October.
So that people will be able to start watching process now. It'll
We will.
progress.
And it'll look like it's done, but it
right,
really isn't.
right.
The outside will be done.
And then there will be a spot that would later be redeveloped for like some small shops, a few of them.
Well, on the southeast corner, there's a lot there.
Right.
And they were proposing, not necessarily shops, what they're proposing is maybe a dental clinic.
Oh, okay.
Like a health clinic,
Uh-huh.
2 to 3 stories perhaps. They will own that land.
Right.
The city has an agreement with them. If they don't develop it within 7 years, we can buy it back for what they paid for it.
Okay.
And so it behooves them to develop it.
Right.
Because in 7 years, that property will increase in value, but
Right.
we're allowed to buy it back for what they paid for it.
But then you'll make sure it's completed.
Yes.
The
And
whole
of course,
project.
there's restrictions on what they want there.
Uh-huh.
They don't want another convenience store in there.
Right.
I mean, they don't want things that are going to compete with their business.
Right.
And you can certainly understand why they don't.
That makes
So
sense.
that won't happen until the store is complete and the gas station and the convenience stores are complete. And then they'll start looking. I'm sure they won't build anything till they have a tenant.
Right. And then the other thing I think a lot of people have been questioning is what's going to happen to the farmers market, because that has been, the New Hope Farmers Market has been a very successful
It's
endeavor.
a huge successful endeavor, not just for the vegetables, but for the camaraderie
Right.
and the community building. It won't go away,
Okay.
but it won't be there,
Okay.
obviously. We had thought about maybe putting it in the street, but the problem is the farmers market opens in June, and that's right going to be during their construction time.
Ah,
And
right,
so-
right.
We need to find another place for it. The farmers market is not run by the city, by the way.
Right.
They have a separate entity that's running that. Those people are meeting. They have a couple potential places where they could be. St. Joe's is one of them.
Okay.
So a couple of the churches have said you can use our facilities. So they're looking. We need to have parking.
Sure.
And we need to have a lot of space, not only for the vendors, but for the tents.
Right.
And we don't want it in a place where people can't get at it. So there's a lot of places that don't work.
Okay.
And once Hy-Vee is up and running, the second year, if we have the streetscape done,
Right.
we'll probably move it back and close off Xylon.
Okay.
Now, I don't know why, but they won't let us close it off in front of the fire department. So we have to go north of the
Right,
fire
right,
department,
right.
south of the police department, but we should be able to get the vendors in there, and there's a place for them to park.
Right.
So that's the hope that'll go back there, but
Okay.
if that doesn't work, you'll put it somewhere, we just don't know where.
Right. Because that's what people, I think, are wondering, that will it continue?
It will
and
yes.
that's good to know.
It will continue, and we'll, as soon as we've got a spot, we'll make sure that people know.
Okay.
We can do things like tell you, so you
Right,
can tell
right,
us on the
sure.
show. We'll use our newspaper, our website, so we'll get the word out where
Right.
it's going to be.
Now, I'm going to switch gears, but we'll still stay in the redevelopment area. And there's been a couple of apartment complexes, Compass Point and Gates of New Hope. And I thought we'd start out with the Compass Point project, because that has gotten some news along the way, because it's been in process longer. But when was that approved by the City Council? Oh, wait, first, let's start out where it's at.
It's on 62nd and West Broadway.
Okay.
It's 68 units.
Uh-huh.
Originally, it was 4 stories. It actually sits right on 62nd,
Okay.
right up to the street. It's not subsidized. The building actually is getting some federal help to build it.
Right.
This is a real upscale apartment complex. It's being run by Stephen Scott, which is a very good management company. And when you put in an apartment complex, you really need to have a good management company.
Oh, definitely.
So that you have a good, successful project. The rents, they tell me, will be starting at about $750.
Okay.
And you have to make twice that a month to even apply for it. So you'd have to be making $1,500 a month to even apply. Where you're making that money from isn't
Up to
important.
you.
Yeah, but that's one of the requirements. So this is not low-income housing, not at all. It's affordable. It's going to be just a block or two away from where the Botno line is coming.
Oh, right,
so it's very handy. Stephen, we went to visit some of Stephen Scott's other apartments. They're well managed, well run. They're beautiful. It is a big site, and it does take up. There was a gas station there that the city bought probably 3 years ago. Tore that down. It had been empty forever. We owned the next 3 lots. There were some not very good apartment buildings there. We tore those down. They'd been empty for 17 years. The land had been sitting there. So when Ron Clark Construction came to us with this proposal, it just made sense. If this works, and I'm sure it will, they're probably going to look at buying the other 3 or 4 apartments and building another complex. The neighbors were not real happy because of it being 4 stories in their backyard. That's why they pushed it as close to the street as they could. They lowered the part that's facing the single-family homes to 3 stories. They're putting in fences and big trees, so there'll be the parking will be on the south side of the building, between the building and the neighbors' garages. So hopefully, this is the trend. This is the trend. And people say, well, why didn't you just put single-family homes there? Well, you have to get a developer that wants to do that, and none came forward.
Well, and I think a lot of people aren't aware, thinking that the city can do whatever they want.
Oh, heavens, no.
But it doesn't work that way in the business world.
No.
They have to be able to make a profit and be able to do what they want to accomplish,
And our job as a city is to make sure that it's well run. It meets the ordinances, it's tidy, and they're attracting people that we want in our city. And they will be.
And now I know it's under construction now, so if anybody drove by that area, they'd see construction going on. What is the timeline for completion?
Well, they're hoping to be leased out in spring. Which means what people can do is they can either go to the city website and then go to community development, and from there they should be able to find Compass Point, or they could just type in Compass Point. If all else fails, you can always call the city. You can call me. They'll tell you how to get an application. I don't know that as of last week, they were not taking applications yet. But I think it wouldn't hurt to look into it
if you're looking for something that fits in with that future transportation in that area.
They're just beautiful. They really are.
Now, the other end of the city, down on the
Medicine
Lake Road, is the Gates of New Hope. Now, tell us the details of this project.
The Gates of New Hope is a 32-unit apartment building. It's on Medicine Lake Road in Gettysburg. There was a State Farm Insurance a building there, and next to it was an older home. So this young man bought those 2 pieces of property, cleared the land, flattened it out. We had a groundbreaking in October. He's probably going to start building, I would think, yet this year. And he's looking to be ready to operate by midsummer.
And maybe you can talk about a little of the details for this particular complex.
I haven't, because the person, the contractor, does not have another building to look at. But he indicated that these would be market rate apartments. A little more upscale. If you know the area at all, those are really nice apartments down.
It is in an apartment complex of several other...
Well, there's several other apartment complexes.
In that same area.
He's just building the one with 32 units. So we're excited. We've got a new building at both ends of town.
And they'll both probably get completed, one right after the other?
Mid-spring, summer,
So another area for people to check out if
Yes.
they're looking for changes in the future. Now, there was something I just saw where somebody was complaining about railroad noise in the newspaper, but New Hope has done something about that.
Oh my goodness, the Railroad Administration, the Federal Railroad Administration. Oh my goodness. So Boone Avenue and about
Just kind of
Science Center
north
Drive.
of 51st, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a railroad track there, and there's an apartment building.
Right.
And when the trains went by, every 7 minutes, all night long, they would blow their horn.
Right.
Because it's when the arms come down, what they're telling us is if there's any way at all that you can get around those arms, somebody will figure out how to do that.
Probably.
And so they blow their horns because they really don't want to run into anybody.
Yeah, right.
Well, sometimes they get a little overzealous. And this was very irritating to the neighbors.
Right.
So we had started looking into making this a quiet zone.
Right.
And then there was going to be some reconstruction done on Boone Avenue, and we thought this is the perfect time to do this.
Right.
And so we made center islands, we put in longer arms, we did some things so that people couldn't get by.
Right.
And so then on the 31st of October, they actually pulled the signs off that said, this is a quiet zone.
Uh-huh.
Now, I understand that trains that are going eastbound aren't blowing the horns, but the ones that are going westbound
right.
are. So we have to have a little talk with them.
Right.
But the second thing that's happening is Winnetka Avenue, same train,
Right.
same problem, but now we know what to do.
Uh-huh.
And so Hennepin County has actually agreed to help us a little bit
Oh,
on
yes.
the
I did
on
watch
paying
it.
for the street
Yeah.
redevelopment.
Because the cost of it it's fairly costly.
It's very
right?
costly. It's about $290,000 to do this. It's very costly. But we really want them to be safe,
Oh, yes.
and so the city is doing the electronics, the county is doing the road work, and so hopefully this won't take 2-3 years.
Right,
'cause
right.
we're getting smarter.
Yeah, it's a long process.
The Railroad Administration tells us that we cannot restrict their horn blowing. If they think it's necessary, they'll still do that.
Right.
And quite frankly, you really want them to do that if they
Right.
need to do that. But I don't see that it's necessary every 7 minutes all
Right.
night long.
Yeah, and well, we live quite a ways away. In the summer, you can hear it, but if you're much closer than us,
Yeah.
it can be a real bother, I think, in the nighttime.
Well, and Northridge sits right there.
Oh, right.
And so
right.
does Chardon Court, and so does Woodbridge.
Yeah.
And so we've got a lot of seniors living in that
Right.
area. And I think it's a good thing that we're doing this.
Yeah, I think people will be very happy with that. Well, I want to thank you so much
Thank
for taking your time and sharing all these ideas with our audience out here. So I hope that you've learned something about New Hope, and we'll encourage you to tune in next week for part 2 of New Hope's issues. And then remember, if it's an issue that you heard tonight that kind of resonates with you, take time to find out what's happening in your city. And we'll see you next week. Bye.